You're listening to Last Word Radio, where you get the last word.
Welcome to the Fourth Line Podcast in partnership with Last Word on Sports. This is August the 26th, 2017, and with you today is myself, Carl, and the always wonderful Joel. Welcome to the last episode of August.
Last episode of August. That means we're almost into preseason.
Almost preseason. It is almost NFL season, and it's almost the fall, and as much as everyone in Calgary is sad that summer's ending, I'm excited.
Yeah?
Fall is my favorite time of the year, and it's almost here.
Yeah, I don't mind fall. I don't really have a favorite time of the year. I just have a least favorite time of the year.
Which would be...
winter.
Okay.
I hate winter. Winter's the worst.
I'm all right with winter. Like, I think spring is probably my least favorite time of the year.
What? Seriously?
Yeah.
How come?
Because it's dirty. It's like there's melted snow everywhere, so everything's just a mess. And
You should
then
move somewhere that doesn't have snow.
right, it's very different for you. You see, like, why is winter so? See, your winter is my spring. That's why we both like it for. We both dislike the same season, just at different times of the year.
It's just nonstop rain. You can't do anything outside because it's gross.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't mind fall. I can get behind that because you got fall is a great sports season.
And I think this summer has been the worst sports summer in some time. Because, like, there's been no... As much as, you know, we aren't big into some of these events, there's no Olympics, there's no World Cup, there's no, like, big sporting event. So it's literally just been baseball, which is fine. I like baseball, don't get me wrong, but there's been nothing else.
Just because your Jays are out of it. That's the only reason.
Yeah, it's fine.
I'm enjoying baseball. Seriously, kid, can we talk about why you're playing with a knife?
I'll just put that down.
For those who can't see Carl right now, he's got a big, and I don't know how big it is, but it's like right into the camera, and so it looks ginormous.
It's like, what, 2 inches?
Oh, so it's not actually that big.
Yeah.
But when you're holding it up in front of the camera, it looks huge, and like you're just playing with a knife. I
fiddle with things. Apparently, there was a knife next to me.
Okay, well...
This is what happens when you unpack your house. Random things end up in random areas. Which reminds me, I found my Paul Kariya autographed hockey card last night.
Ooh, very nice.
Yeah. And also my Jerome McGinley puck. It's quite the collection.
There you go. That's good stuff. I don't have a Paul Kariya bobble thing card. I found a ball. Actually, the reason why I said bobble thing is because I found a little Paul Kariya statue thing at a thrift store the other day.
Nice.
I didn't buy it.
That's fine.
I thought about you because you love Paul Kariya.
Yeah, I do. I mostly, like, biggest reason was because of that card. When I was 11 years old, mailed him off a letter. Dear Mr. Paul Kariya, please sign this hockey card. You can send it back to me here. And he did. That's pretty cool.
What a guy. What a guy.
I would have put him into the Hall of Fame right then and there if I had had a vote, but I didn't, and turns out they didn't need my vote.
They should have. They should have needed your vote. But that's a conversation for a previous day.
Yeah. A Patreon day.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're like, I want to know their thoughts on Paul Kariya in the Hall of Fame, head over to our Patreon. What is a conversation for this day? Obviously, last week, Joel, we had Herman on. We were not... The reason that I now get to unpack was last weekend I moved, and so we were not able to record a show. And what we were able to do was witness the Edmonton Oilers handing out a ton of money to one Leon Draisaitl. A cap hit of $8.5 million for 8 years.
Well done, Oiler Town. You guys have to be thrilled that you got this guy locked up for the longest time possible. I know the rest of the league is thrilled for you.
They're also quite excited to pay their mediocre stars buoyed by a actual superstar way more than they need to.
Oh man, this is gonna be this is like David Clarkson bad. That's how bad this is gonna be.
It's not gonna be David Clarkson bad, but like we don't know what he. Well, okay, we know what he is without Connor McDavid, and it's not good.
Yeah, I, for one, am thrilled with this contract.
In the same way you were thrilled with the Carey Price contract.
Okay, next 4 seasons, they are paying Draisaitl 8.5, Lucic 6, Nugent Hopkins 6. Oh, and Andre Sekera.
Yeah.
Is that how you say that guy's name?
Yeah.
He gets 5.5. Dude, there's some terrible. Oh, Chris Russell. Wait, they give Chris Russell. Seriously. I feel so happy, but I feel sad because like we just wasted Connor McDavid's prime.
Already, it's done. Sorry,
Well,
Connor.
You think he's gonna win with those guys? Those are the next best on your team. And that's where all the money's going.
Yeah.
They better hope that Puyuarvi guy gets his act there.
And gets good.
Yeah.
It is a very confusing situation for this year. Like, I get this year they had the cap space. That's fine. But next year, when McDavid's giant contract kicks in, someone's got to go. Like they already have a total of $60 million locked up for next year.
13 guys.
On 13 guys, yeah. So that's all of their like supplementary guys. So Strome, who they traded Eberle for, got to give him some money. And then Letestu, Maroon, those kinds of guys. And then Darnell Nurse wants to get paid. And you've already proven that you're willing to overpay for some young guys. So someone's got to go. The talk on the street, obviously, is that Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is on his way out, which will leave them with none of the guys that was part of the next Oilers young era when he's finally gone after Eberle, Hall, Yakupov are already on other teams.
Okay, but nobody wants that guy, though. Like, who's going to get, like, anything of value?
Someone will give something. Like, he's not nothing. And at that point, it'll be $6 million for 3 more years.
That's a lot for him.
It is a lot for him, but I think you will have someone give up. Yeah, it won't be substantial. Like, it'll be a mediocre player and a pick.
Why would you help them out, though? See, that's the thing. Like, is he worth it to help a team out? Because that's what you'd be doing.
That's why you hold on to him. Like that, or that's why it'll be so small. Like, cause you're not going to go out of your way to help him out, help the Oilers out, but you do need, he is of value. Is he $6 million worth? No. Like, if he was on the open market right now, I bet that someone would pay him $6 million.
Really?
Yes.
Man, that's crazy. People love that guy.
Well, it's just, that's the price that a free agent gets. Like, free agents, they're just handing out free agent money.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't
Leon Draisaitl's making $8.5 million, Joel.
Yeah, but okay. But, like, we're talking, like, these 2 terrible contracts are Oilers contracts. Like, I don't know. I just think it's nobody wants the Nuge. Nobody. He's not, like... Has anyone ever been, like, apart from, like, when he was drafted first overall, has anyone ever actually been, like, excited about him and been like, yeah, I'm so thrilled that I've got his jersey and that he's my favorite player? Like, nobody is like, the Nuge is my favorite player.
No, not in the slightest.
And as a number, like, and maybe that's it. Like, if he was drafted in the third round, we're probably being like, yeah, he's still terrible, but that's okay. But now,
we're also not talking, like, if he's a third round pick making even $4 million right now, we're like, yeah, whatever.
Oh, this team is hilarious. They're going to be... Yeah.
So my question on this is, I hear everyone talking about how the Oilers are set down the middle and how Draisaitl is going to be this fantastic centerman. He literally, and I mentioned it, but he literally is trash with O'Connor McDavid. If you look at the fancy numbers of it, his Corsi with McDavid, 53.8%. Mm-hmm. That's pretty good, right?
You go ahead and tell me whether that's good or not.
50% means like you're breaking even, right? It's like a 0 plus minus. 53% is pretty good. His Corsi with O'Connor McDavid drops 6 points to 47.7%.
That sounds bad.
So if you want to put Leon Draisaitl as your second line center and have a sub 50 Corsi guy making $8.5 million, then go for it. Or if you want to pay Chris Kunitz $8.5 million to play on Connor McDavid's wing, you can have that too.
Yeah. It's crazy that they think this guy is like, he didn't really play center, right?
He split, like he certainly played more with McDavid last year than not. And he did play some center in the playoffs. But for the most part, he played the wing.
Yeah. So where are they expecting? So who are their centers? So they got Connor McDavid. So then they're saying Draisaitl's your 2.
Nuge is your 3.
And then like
whoever is your 4. Like
is Strome
2.
Is Strome playing? He's going to be on your wing on your 2, right? Strome's probably playing the right wing on your second line.
Probably, yeah.
So it's great. I love
because you don't want to put Strome on Connor's wing, have him go off, and then have to pay him because you can't afford to do that mistake again.
They got to pay Talbot here too.
Not for a couple more years.
Yeah, but like 2019 is like. That offseason, after the 18-19 season, that's going to be a rough offseason for Oilers and Oilers fans because they're just going to look at like all the money that's on the books and all the guys that they need to bring in, and they're going to be like, oh man, what have we done?
How did we get into this mess?
Yeah, and
then they'll realize that they paid Draisaitl and McDavid as if they were Taves and Kane or Crosby and Malkin.
Well, but the McDavid, no one's arguing the McDavid side of that.
True,
but
yeah.
Everyone, in 2 years, the Draisaitl part of it is going to be very sad. So I would not want to be in that situation. Like, because everything is always about me. When the Leafs, because they're going to pay Matthews, and then he's going to get he's probably going to get 11. That's my guess, is what Matthews will get. And then he'll be in the same, like, so he'll be the McDavid of the Leafs, and then you got Nylander or Marner, who's going to get that next big one. It's probably going to be Marner who's going to get that close to 8-ish. But like, I'm much more comfortable with Mitch Marner being that second, like the Kane to Taves or whatever, on the Leafs than I am Draisaitl to McDavid. Like,
well, especially because like you're using Marner right now in the role you'd be paying him for. You know what you're going to get. It's like, oh, Marner on the wing. This is what we're going to get out of him as our winger. You're not like, we're going to pay him based on what he did on the wing, move him to center, and assume he can just do the exact same thing.
Right. And the other thing is that, like, Marner in one season has proved he can be the best guy on his line if he's not playing with Matthews.
Yeah.
Like, he drove that line of JVR and Bozak and him. Like, he was the one that brought the playmaking, the skill. And so you're not sad if you pay him to be that $8 million guy, because you're like, well, and the thing is, he probably won't, because he's a winger, and they're like, but you want to know why William Nylander hasn't moved back to center yet? It's because they don't want to pay him like a center, so they're going to pay him because he's on the wing, and then he's going to move back to center, guaranteed, because he can play center, but they're not, like, it's hilarious. It's hilarious. The Oilers are going to regret this.
So here's one interesting thing that I kind of heard this week. It was someone on the Fan 960 here in Calgary. I forget who it was. They were talking about there's a number of restricted free agents still unsigned. And we'll kind of get into those a little bit. But one of them being Sam Bennett, a guy who was drafted the same year as Leon Draisaitl. And their logic was, this is a guy who 3 years ago, in Sam Bennett, we were comparing to Draisaitl and saying, you know, these guys are similar. They're a comparable player. And when the Oilers took Draisaitl and the Flames took Bennett, I think both of them were like, yeah, we both got good players that could become equal. And now they're looking up 3 hours north and saying, here's Draisaitl going off Sam Bennett, struggling to get a foothold and figure out what he is with the Flames. The Flames are having that same debate of, is Bennett a center? Is Bennett a wing? And, you know, they haven't decided. The Oilers seem to think that they're going to be using Draisaitl as a center. And so the Flames fans are saying to themselves, you know what, this is a guy, they're talking up Sam Bennett to themselves, saying this is a guy who just 3 years ago looked like Draisaitl, but we're going to be able to get him for like a third of the price of what they're paying for him up there. And so I look at that and it's like, that's not a correct logic to think about it. If you want to make yourself sleep soundly at night, sure, go nuts. But, you know, this is a somewhat similar situation, is that the Oilers have a Connor McDavid to make Draisaitl look good. If Sam Bennett had Connor McDavid to play with, and they were like, you know what, we'll put you with Connor for half a season, and then we'll put you at center, they would be in the exact same situation.
Yeah, as not good as that Draisaitl contract's going to be, like, I have zero confidence that Sam Bennett is, like, anything more than a depth player at this point.
That's all you think that he's going to be, is just depth?
Well, maybe. I don't know. He hasn't shown that he can be more than that. It's not like... Have you, like, when you've watched him play, do you ever see, like, okay, yeah, he's not there yet, but I see flashes of greatness?
His first season, yeah, there was potential for quality there. This past season, he stepped back.
Yeah, so, like, maybe, but, like, the Flames are sure lucky he didn't just go off this past year like Draisaitl did and have to pay him a ton of money. But, I don't know. Sam Bennett, like, I'm sure the Flames are happy to go year by year, or they're not going to sign him for a long term. It makes zero sense to do that right now for either side. No,
exactly. It's going to be 2 years at most.
Yeah. Which of these restricted free agents that are left do you think won't sign by, let's say, like, start of the season? Do any of these carry into the season?
I could definitely see the Pasternak one getting that deep. This is a guy who was pretty important to that Bruins team last year and still hasn't signed. And there's been more talk about other teams wanting him than what's going to happen with him and the Bruins. A guy put up 34 goals last year and still not signed to a Bruins team that needs him if they're going to make the playoffs, has the cap here, but doesn't really, they're not in a nice situation moving forward either. Sure, they've got Char coming off the books next year, but other than that, there's not a lot of wiggle room for this Bruins team. They're kind of locked into what they are, and having to pay a guy with now, he can argue and demand as much or more than what Draisaitl got. And that's what puts them in this situation.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the other question. Would you rather Draisaitl at 8.5 by 8 or Bo Horvat at 6 by 6?
Horvat, and it's not close. Because Horvat is actually a center. That's what he does.
And he has shown that he can be, again, that's the thing. When you're paying guys 6, 7, 8, you're starting to get into that range, they better be the best player on the line that they're playing on.
You have to be able to make a difference by yourself, or there's no point. You don't pay you're essentially paying a role player. If you can't make a difference, there's no point.
And I'm not sure Draisaitl can be that guy. But I am fairly sure Horvat can. And he showed that he can. He was the best player on the Canucks last year.
Absolutely. So are you thinking 6 and 6 is what it's going to come to for Horvat? Because he still hasn't signed.
Yeah, I think that's what it's probably going to be, or 6.5, something like that. I'd be surprised if it becomes an 8-year deal. They probably would love to do an 8-year deal with him, though, if they can make it happen. But I'm not sure. I think it's going to be 6 by 6 somewhere in there. That seems to be the most amount of sense. But there's not a whole lot of. You got Horvat, Pasternak, and then it's kind of a step down to all the rest that are left, right?
There's Wenberg, there's Connor Brown with the Leafs, Severson with the Devils, and then watching Detroit Red Wings fans lose their mind at Athanasiou maybe going to the K has been greatly enjoyable this week.
Yeah, So is there anyone really that... There's no one really, other than Pasternak and Horvat, there's no one that would greatly affect a team if they miss a few games at the beginning of the season.
I would, Wenberg would be an impact for the Jackets. He was a quality guy for them last year. But yeah, other than from there down, certainly not.
I just think the Jackets team is probably deep enough that it's not going to hit them. Obviously over the length of the season, they're going to miss a guy like him. But it's not going to be super noticeable. Leafs aren't going to be... They want Connor Brown in their lineup, but it's not going to be devastating to them if he's... But I don't see him holding out. He's not good enough to hold out.
No, he can't demand really a whole lot. Connor, you're what is he? Your 6th best forward? 7th?
Oh, something in like that. Yeah, I love Connor Brown, don't get me wrong, but as what he is, not as anything more than a third-line winger, maybe a second-line winger. I'd love to see a 3 or 4 year deal at 2.5, 3 mil. That would be perfect.
Yeah, that would certainly not suck. Well, Joel, later in the show, we are going to have a chat with Mr. Rob Vollman, author of Hockey Abstract 2017. And what you'll want to stay tuned for that, because 1, it's a great interview, and 2, we tell you how you can win a copy of Rob's latest book, this year's edition of Hockey Abstract, which, we've taken a read here. Great as always. So you'll want to read it. If you don't win, you'll want to go out and buy that. But first, there were some comments made by Mr. Brandon Dubinsky on Twitter yesterday that caused a little kerfuffle. So
kerfuffle.
I'll read you out the tweets. People got a little up in arms with Dubinsky because honestly, and I love that he made the comments, but not often do we have NHL players talking without being asked about the way that the league is run, right?
Right.
Maybe like salary or CBA year, you'll hear players saying they're scripted PA things, but this is a guy who no one said, "Hey, Brandon Dubinsky, what do you think?" He just started going off because we're having these college free agents August 15th. They're able to sign with new teams. So we're having, Alex Kerfoot signed with the Avalanche. Will Butcher's apparently going to be announcing who he signs with this weekend. I didn't know that we were at the point that we needed large announcements of these things, but that's happening. So Brandon Dubinsky took to Twitter and he said, college free agency in the NHL needs to be figured out. It's a joke, especially to the guys that play major junior. I bet teams that made the draft pick would agree with me as well. Then 2 hours later, when he realized what he did, he said, let me clarify. I want players to have all options they can when they sign a contract. Major junior players can't, and it's not fair. That's it. So his issue is the fact that we've got multiple systems at play here, right? We've got the junior guys, we've got the college guys, we've got the international guys who follow an entirely different set of circumstances and things.
Sort of. The international guys are older. They've had their chance to be drafted.
Certainly. Well, and that's what happens with these college guys. They have been drafted and they didn't sign. They went back to school and, for whatever length of time, they just didn't sign their contract. So they're free agents. Will Butcher won the Hobey Baker last year, best college player. He's a free agent. He's also 22 years old already.
Yeah.
So it would be the exact same as if Draisaitl, we talked about earlier, just didn't sign his contract with the Oilers, waited 3 years, didn't go back into the draft, and then, ta-da, you're a free agent.
I have two thoughts about this. One, I don't. Oh, are you gonna say something? You're holding up. Or is this my one point?
This is point number one. I'm counting for you.
Counting for me. One, I don't care because college players are terrible. That's like, this is a big whole lot of dude about nothing because there's a reason why they didn't sign their entry level contracts to get into major junior, or to go to like the AHL or after they're drafted and continue in junior because they're not good. Because the team didn't think they were good enough to like try and work something out with them.
Right. This is a guy, Will Butcher. Everyone's losing their mind about him, and I'm with you to a degree. There are good college players out there, but here's the difference. Colorado Avalanche drafted both Tyson Yost and Will Butcher. Will Butcher was drafted in the 5th round of the playoffs in 2000, 5th round of the draft. In the 5th round of the playoffs would be incredibly impressive. That doesn't exist.
Yeah.
He was drafted in the 5th round in 2013. And didn't sign, went and played hockey. So we're now 4 years later. He's 22 years old. There was a reason he was drafted 5th overall. It's not because he, like you said, if he was good, he would have been drafted. Tyson Yost also played some college hockey, drafted by the Colorado Avalanche. He was drafted 10th overall in the 1st round. Now signed, is going to be playing with that team this year because he's good. These guys who are doing this are not necessarily that good. If they were, teams would pony up the big dollars to make them show up.
Yeah, that's the thing. The other thing is, so that's my first main thought about this is that I just don't care enough about any of these players because, yeah, some of them will hit and they'll be okay. And that's fine. Like, Bozak, undrafted college free agent, or maybe he was drafted, but he's a college free agent. Turned out good. He's made a good career of himself. He's signed a contract that is probably he hasn't quite lived up to, but you're not super sad about it. But just whatever. So yes, some of these guys will hit, and that's fine. But most of them won't. And that's because they're not good. Like, remember Casey Bailey? Casey Bailey sweepstakes?
Yeah.
Everyone got all so excited about it, and then Casey Bailey showed up, and you're like, oh, you're not good. So, second thing is, like, yeah, I don't know what Dubinsky's problem is, because this isn't, I don't see the problem here. Because they got drafted, and they just weren't good enough. Like I said, like if he has a problem with, I don't know what the problem is, because it's like in the NFL, guys get drafted in the 7th round, right? And most of those guys get cut by the time they end of training camp and preseason, and they're not on the team anymore, and they're on practice rosters, but they just weren't good enough, and so teams weren't willing to commit money to them for them to stay on their team. And that's exactly what's happening with these guys. They get drafted, then don't sign contracts because now I wonder, is he saying that guys go to college after they get drafted and purposely don't sign contracts? And then that's where they get so they don't make money. They purposely just want to become free agents early on. But the thing is, if guys are purposely doing that, they're losing money in the long run. Because instead of signing an entry-level deal when you're 18, 19, you're signing an entry-level deal when you're 22. You're still hitting free agency around the same time, but your development is so much worse. You are going to develop into a better player if you play junior in the WHL or CHL than if you play in college.
Or I would argue if you played in the A and then because you're going to be in pro camp, right? You're going to be showing up in 2 weeks. You'll show up, you'll play, you'll go and you'll get better. You'll learn the systems of an NHL player. And sure, there are good college programs out there, but the best coaches in the world are coaching the NHL. The ones who are going to help you get the best you can are there. You should be there.
Yeah, exactly. Like yeah, absolutely the AHL. Like, there's a reason, like, the AHL is probably the next best league to develop in if you're not ready for the NHL. Because you're playing against guys that are the same size as NHLers. Because, like, in the CHL, yeah, like, that's a lot of where the top talent is. But you're not, like, those guys are smaller, right? So when you're the overage kid playing in the CHL, you're bigger than everybody else.
Well, and the depth, like you're playing against a guy, the 4th line in the A versus a 4th line in the dub or
exactly
is way just entirely different level. So
I don't know I don't really know what his beef is, like, other than I don't fully understand it, other than that, like, and the reason why no one's going to get too worked up about this, because it just doesn't matter. There's just not enough talent coming out of college, and there never will be. College will never take over from the AHL or the CHL. It just won't.
Well, and I think that if it does, those players will start playing faster. Like, there are college players who have played college, they play 1 or 2 seasons, and then go and play in the big time. Like, that happens. And that will continue to happen if the system gets better. But if the players aren't that highly touted, and it's not like they're able to make more money, it's still technically an entry-level contract. There's still the same caps on it. There's still the same limitations to it as before. It's just, like you said, just later.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's kind of a whole lot of doing out nothing, but
I think it's part of the reason why people care is also part of the reason why we're talking about it. People care because it's hockey news to talk about. Someone's going to sign in the middle of August. We're scrounging for something hockey, and just the hockey media and etc. blows it up into something else. The fans start hearing about these players. Spencer Fu signing with the Flames. Oh, is he going to be good? No, probably not. Like, he might be, but it's at best 50-50.
I'd like to. I can't. I've been trying this whole time. I've been trying to find. Some guy made a tweet and I sent it to you, and it nails it on the head. And the guy said, he said something along the lines of, he's like, college free agents in the NHL is like the T-shirt from the T-shirt cannon at an event. Everyone's excited, they're yelling about it, but when you catch the T-shirt and you like open that bad boy up, you realize that you just got a terrible prize. I forget the guy. I forget the guy's name, but it killed me because I was like, that's 100% it. You're so excited about it. You want to win this thing. Your team signs. I was so excited about Casey Bailey. That was the last time I got excited about a college free agent, and it will be the last time. I will never get excited about one before. I will get more excited about teams bringing over 22-year-olds from the KHL. That's to me, that's more like when I saw, I forget which one. There's the young KHL right shot defenseman that teams are going over. Well, Lou and Babs went over this week to sell the Leafs to him. I'm excited about that because you want to know why? The guys that come over from the KHL usually a lot better.
Yeah, well, and you have the Shoshnikov example there to show how
Zaitsev?
That's the one.
That's the one.
You also have Shoshnikov.
We do.
He got drafted though.
He got drafted.
It's different. I meant Zaitsev. You're right.
But he's one of many. He's one of many guys that have come over from the KHL that have succeeded. Yeah.
For sure.
So.
Well, it is time for what is becoming our third annual conversation with Mr. Rob Vollman. Great conversation about stats, and I guess I won't tell you what we talked about. I'll just let you listen to it. Welcome back, everyone. We are very excited to have with us once again Mr. Rob Vollman, author of Hockey Abstract 2017, among others. Rob, welcome back.
Yeah, it's great to be back on your show, and congratulations on having a great show last season, and looking forward to listening to you guys next year.
Yeah, we certainly, the summer's starting to wrap up, and I know we were just talking offline about how busy your summer's been. So it'll be nice to be able to watch some hockey and use what we read in Hockey Abstract 2017 to actually, evaluate what we see on the ice.
Yeah, I'm glad you're giving me credit for watching the games, because a lot of people, for whatever bizarre reason, thinks you have to choose between watching the game and studying it. But actually, no, you can do both, and one's definitely more enjoyable than the other.
Certainly, that's why we're all here. We all started watching the game, so why stop, right?
Yeah.
So Hockey Abstract 2017. This is you've been going since 2013 with the Hockey Abstract?
Yeah, the first and my original plan only book was going to be that 2013 edition, which is just called Rob Vollman's Hockey Abstract. This is no year not or anything. It was just meant to be the book. But yeah, it came out at just the right time. You'll remember that's around the time that this stuff really started to take off, and so it did very well. I was very encouraged by everybody's support, and so quite frankly, everybody was just begging me for another edition. So I did it again next year, although I had to sort of come up with new things, because the 2013 book was sort of everything I had sort of created to that point. So for the 2014 edition, I had to come up with some new stuff. And of course, that's when I brought in Tom and Ian as my co-authors, longtime friends. We've worked together for a very long time. So it was great bringing them in for the 2014. And then that did so well that I got a publisher who, of course, changed the title to Hockey Abstract Presents Stat Shot, or just Stat Shot for short. That was 2016. And there's going to be a sequel to that as well in 2018. But in the meantime, I figured rather than leave a gap, let's have Hockey Abstract 2017. So that's what I just released, and that's, I guess, what we're going to talk about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some people, because I know my first perception when I heard of Hockey Abstract and I saw these yearly editions, I almost looked at it like the baseball prospectus book. I don't know how much you're aware of that. And it's essentially just a collection of numbers. And Hockey Abstract is certainly not that. There are numbers in the book, don't get me wrong, but for those of you who are just tuning in, have never heard of Hockey Abstract or are aware of what it is far from just a collection of statistics.
Yeah, it's basically inspired by Baseball Abstract and Bill James. If you remember that, it started in 1977 and he did it till at least, I think it was the late 80s, maybe even 1990. And it wasn't really an annual guidebook. It wasn't really about, hey, here are the strengths and weaknesses of the various teams. It was more like, here's some interesting ways of answering questions, of studying various aspects of that sport. And we're using this season's data as our catalyst, as our inspiration and as our example. But really, it's not about studying the season. It's about answering these questions. And I've taken that as my inspiration. So certainly there's a lot of stuff that pertains to this coming season. But the bulk of it, the majority of it, are sort of timeless questions and ways of approaching problems and ways of thinking about problems. And if I've done my job properly, then you should be able to pull Hockey Abstract 2017 or any of the editions off your shelf 5 years from now and still get the same enjoyment out of it.
Well, and I think that is what is good, because certainly looking at what you look at, some of the topics you look at is, goaltenders, prospects. You look at Nico Hischier and kind of evaluate or predicting or how to project what he can do this coming season. And I think you can look at that and then even, going back to the original book with the additional data that we have, seeing, well, what can I learn from that now? So it is something that, does have a timelessness to it in that there's always more data. There's always more information being produced.
Yeah, in fact, that's one of the appeals. If you already have one of the earlier editions, one of the appeals is to actually compare and to see what those innovations look like with today's data and today's players, and also to see sort of the difference. What have we learned? What's developed? What's new? And of course, if you've never looked at Hockey Abstract before, and something intrigues you, like you read something like, wow, I really like to know more of the history of that. I'd like to dig into that more. It's nice to know that those other books are available if something piques your interest.
Absolutely. And we definitely recommend anyone who is interested to go and check that out. One thing that you talk about in this year's edition is goaltenders. And you take a look at the question of who is the best goaltender, what makes a good goaltender. And one statistic, one measured amount that you look at is home plate percentage. And I know there's a lot of different ways that people look at numbers, whether it be medium, low, high risk save percentage, home plate save percentage. What is it that made you pick home plate as your kind of go-to number for this area of the book?
Home plate save percentage. That comes about just by traditional hockey, traditional scouting. I mean, the home plate area. I mean, I heard about that when I was a little boy. I mean, that's a really old concept, going from the goalposts to the face-off dots and then up to the top of the circle and across till it forms a home plate, like in baseball. I'm actually describing it with my hands in the air, but of course, this is audio. But the home plate area is where the most dangerous shots occur. The problem with save percentage is that all shots are treated equally, whether it's from the point or whether it's up close. But there's some information to be learned by studying and comparing goalies just by looking at the dangerous shots up front. And just to give you a simple example, when we first unveiled this stat, that's when, in 2014, that's when Devin Dubnyk, it looked like he was done, looked like he was washed up. He had bounced around several teams and it looked like his career was over. Well, we observed that he actually had one of the highest home plate save percentages in the NHL. And of course, then that caused us to look deeper at his other numbers. And, sure enough, the very next year he broke out, was a Vezina finalist. So that particular perspective has proven quite useful. And it's led to other interesting perspectives, like you mentioned, adjusted save percentage. It's led to other things. And the reason it's important is that, it can be hard to tell the difference between goalies like Dubnyk and Holtby and all these goalies. The difference between one goalie and another in terms of save percentage can sometimes be one shot in every 4,000. I mean, there's such parity in nets in the NHL. And so you need to find other ways to analyze these goalies to dive deeper into the numbers. And home plate save percentage is one of a couple dozen different tools that we have right now.
Well, and I think that having these tools is incredibly important, especially for goalies. As you mentioned, the parity is crazy. When I look at goaltenders and you think, certainly not all of the best goaltenders in the league are in the NHL, but one could argue that the 20, 30 best goaltenders are in this league. So if you are the 30th best goaltender, which would be the starting goalie on a worse team on average, that's still pretty good. So being able to find new ways to evaluate, and like you said, that 1 in 4,000, what does that mean? How does that look? I think that that's part of what makes the difference between what you could see as Devin Dubnyk as an example.
Yeah, and teams need to find that edge. I mean, with that much parity, it may be difficult for traditional scouts, traditional goalie coaches, traditional viewpoints to separate one goalie for another. It helps to have that one additional perspective just to add it into the mix. And the teams that are most effective at doing so are the ones that are going to find some good goalies and get that critical difference every year.
For sure. One other thing that you mentioned or talk about in depth in the book is how to evaluate your team. And so you go through some of the hit list, the checklist of the most important aspects of looking at a team. And one of them that I think is a difficult one for the average person to grasp is coaching. You talk about coaching in the book and look at how the numbers for coaching can tell you something about how well the team can play. For those of us who have no idea, myself included, I'm not well grasped in what kind of numbers you can even look at for coaches. What is it that you're looking at when you're taking a statistical look for coaching staff?
Yeah, it's a real pity that coaching is just ignored, by traditional media. I mean, go to the store right now, take out a magazine, an annual yearbook, magazine, and they'll break down the power play, and they'll break down the goaltending, they'll break down the rookies, they'll break down every aspect of a lineup, but nothing for coaching. Whereas, in my view, your coaching could be one of the most important aspects of a team in terms of how they're going to finish in the standings. So the very, very, very simple approach we take here, just to keep things moving in the book, is we take a look at how a coach's teams have performed in the standings relative to expectations. Now, in any given season, that can be influenced by luck and other factors, like, a certain player has a great year or players get hurt. But over the long run, you start to get a pattern, you start to get a trend, especially if you start looking at the coaches' data in other leagues like the AHL and the Canadian major junior leagues, or as you start to expand, look at the entire staff and not just the head coach. The only trick is, well, how do you know how well a team would have done with a league average coach? Like, you know how they actually did because it's right there in the standings, but how do you know how they would have done with any other coach? And basically our quick and dirty solution for our purposes is we basically assume that they would have done the same as the year before, except regress to the average by 35%. So that means you got to keep the good teams good, you got to make the average teams better, and you got to make the worst teams better by more than they would have sort of improved on their own. Now, some people might have a problem with that, but basically, if you just take last year's standings and regress it to the mean by 35%, your prediction is going to be just as accurate as the experts. And I've done this every year. I mean, you can grab all the expert picks from TSN, ESPN, Hockey News, and all that, make an average out of it, and then just do that one simple thing, and that prediction is going to be just as good as the experts. So why not use that in our coaching metric as just a quick and easy solution?
That's great news for my Colorado Avalanche, which means statistically probably going to be better next year.
Absolutely. I mean, the other thing in the book as well, we talk about the impact that random variation, in other words, luck, can have in the standings. And basically, Colorado was probably doesn't surprise you, they're one of the unluckiest teams in sort of the post-lockout period.
Well, I did, as we talked about, watching the game, watched a lot of Colorado hockey. There was some unluck, and there was just some plain bad hockey. So if we could get some luck and maybe play a little bit better, I like the sounds of this season already. One thing that you have kind of always been a proponent of, something that you have really pushed and developed, is the player usage charts. And there's 3 pieces of information, I believe 3 pieces of information on a player usage chart, unless I'm missing one. What is the information that I can get out of those charts?
I'd agree that player usage charts are probably my at least my first claim to fame. Like, I've been doing this for a very long time, and it wasn't until player usage charts back in 2011, I think it was, when I first started getting noticed by the mainstream. And it also kicked off a whole trend. Now you see a lot of stuff being put in terms of visualizations. And there's people like, say, Michael Blake McCurdy, who's known as Ineffective Math on Twitter. I mean, his whole gig is doing visualizations. And it all started with the player usage charts years ago, because it's a great way of putting information in a way that makes sense. Because sometimes you put it in a table, it's just a bunch of numbers. You put the same information on a chart, and it really starts to connect. It really starts to, form a picture in your mind of what's going on. So it takes the three most important pieces of information that we had at the time years ago when it comes to how players are deployed. On the horizontal axis, you have the percentage of shifts that player starts in the offensive zone versus the defensive zone. So obviously, like, Patrick Kane's going to have a very high offensive zone start percentage, is going to be all the way on the right, whereas a defensive player like, Patrice Bergeron is going to be maybe more in the middle towards the left. And on the vertical axis, you have quality of competition. So those that go out and take on the top opponents, they're out there shutting down Crosby and shutting down McDavid, they're going to be at the top of the chart. And those that are just playing against the fourth line checkers and just, the grinders and all that, they're going to be at the bottom of the chart. And then each player has this sized and shaded bubbles, and that's the Corsi. You've heard the Corsi statistic. That's just your shot base plus minus, very simple concept with a bad name. But now, instead of that number just floating around and making no sense to you, it's actually right there on a chart in context. And now you can compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges. So you don't compare a Corsi of a first line scoring line center to the Corsi of a defenseman. You don't do that. Instead, you compare players that are in the same role, that are being used the same way. And that's a much more effective way of understanding how players are being used and how effectively they're doing it.
Well, and I think that is the real benefit to the player usage chart, because when we first started looking into it, I naturally am more inclined to numbers than Joel, and he was kind of wondering, like, if a guy is on the right hand side of the chart or the left hand side, right hand being a more offensive player, left side a more defensive player, like, does that mean he's good or bad? And that doesn't necessarily mean either of those. It's how he's deployed, and then you can use the size of those bubbles and the quality of the competition that he's having that large or small Corsi against to really say how they did during that usage.
Yeah, and I have I've been using these player usage charts obviously for a very long time, and I've got a lot of insights. I've learned a lot of tips. I've learned a lot of tricks. I've learned the impact of being in different areas. I've learned to identify situations that really stand out, that they're unusual, that might mean something that you should pay attention to. And there's lots of examples for every team. And it's also fun to diagnose the Vegas Golden Knights, because that's a brand new, fresh team. So you want to know a little bit about what to expect from them. I've got a couple of pages in Hockey Abstract 2017, specifically for them. And, because now player usage charts, you find them everywhere now. Like, now they're mainstream. They're all over the place. But if you read them in my book, you also get my interpretation of them. And I think that's half the value right there.
Well, and definitely, you mentioned the Knights. You have all 31 NHL teams with the charts of last year's numbers, as well as your analysis on how they will rank, as well as with the that breakdown of the important checklist for the team. So definitely make sure, go and check that out. Hockey Abstract 2017. You can get that. HockeyAbstract.com would be the best place to go to find that. That'll put you into anywhere that you can buy the book. However, before we finish, Rob, just a couple questions that I had, not entirely related to the book. Just a couple questions from some listeners today. One is, when it comes to statistics, you have seen the gamut of things. If there was one statistic that you could get rid of, that just never existed, whether it be because it's misrepresented or just a bad representation of numbers, is there one number that you would say, I wish could be gone?
Absolutely. If I could snap my fingers right now, I'd get rid of goalie wins. Why are you giving the goalie a win? The goalie didn't win, the team won, right? And, the team winning, and that's a combination of goals scored, which the goalie has nothing to do with, and the other half of the equation is goal against. And even goals against, that's a combination of shots and save percentage. and the goalie's only responsible for save percentage. So basically, the goalie's responsible for one part of a win. And I'm not saying goalies aren't important, but I mean, wow, why are you giving goalie credit for wins and losses? And you might think, oh, come on, Rob, that's just for fun. No, it's not for fun. Look at the Vezina voting every year. They give them. Why did Jonathan Quick? Why was he a Vezina finalist 2 years ago? Right? It's because he won 40 games. So people are making Hall of Fame decisions. They're making Vezina decisions. They're awarding contracts, big contracts, based on wins, goalie wins. That's not a goalie statistic. It's ridiculous. I mean, we don't do that with players. We don't have Connor McDavid's win-loss record, right? So why do we have goalie win-loss records? Get rid of it. Stop looking at wins and losses. Just drop that from the hockey card. Just have, shots and saves, save percentage, shutouts, whatever you want, but just get rid of wins and losses from a goalie's hockey card.
I think that's a great example of one. And I know, you mentioned with the baseball background as well from Bill James. That is one where there's been a push and a revolution to get rid of that. Even, the quality start, which has quasi replaced it. Even that doesn't fully take into account how good a pitcher was. And I think the more we can get wins out of hockey, the better. If there was one, on the flip side, if there was one measure on the ice that you wish you could have, if you could say, I want to know just this one thing, is there one thing that you would add?
If I could only pick one, now I could give you a list of 100, but if I had to pick one, and one that was sort of just something that's going on right now, it would be passes. If you open up a play-by-play file, so click your favorite game on NHL.com and open up the play-by-play file, not the shift chart, but the play-by-play file, you'll see every shot attempt, whether it missed the net or blocked it. You'll see every hit. You'll see every takeaway. You'll see every giveaway. You'll see line changes. You'll see penalties drawn and taken. You'll see everything. You'll see who's on the ice, who was involved, et cetera, et cetera. The one glaring thing that fits in with all those stats, that just fits in with all of that, is passes, right? It would make perfect sense to actually just put passes in there. We have all the shots. Why not have all the passes? It fits right in with everything. You got all the icings. You got all the penalties. Passes would fit right in. Now, in the long run, I have all sorts of dreams. Like, I'd like to know setting up screens, and I would like to know the various puck battles that occur on the ice, and zone exits and entries, which some people are tracking manually now. But as far as a stat that actually makes sense for what we're currently doing and fits in with what we're currently doing, I would love it if scorekeepers just started keeping track of all the passes that occurred during the game.
There has been a ton of work from Ryan Stimson and folks like him in collecting past data, but definitely it is a ton of work that they are putting in to go back and get this data. And it's nice to see that it started, but certainly if you could open up NHL.com and that was there, that would be a huge benefit.
Yeah, I really love the work Ryan is doing, and not only that though, but one of the reasons I love being part of the hockey analytics community is just the way that people pick up on different ideas and just go in all sorts of interesting directions with it. And I never would have imagined when I first wrote the setup passes estimate years ago, I never really would have imagined exactly where we'd be today, thanks to Ryan Stimson from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of great work and lots of great stuff in all of your hockey abstracts. If people want to find where to get it, hockeyabstract.com, but also we will be giving away one copy of Hockey Abstract 2017. And what you can do is you can go follow us on Twitter at Fourth Line Podcast. While you're at it, follow Rob on Twitter. Rob, what would be your Twitter handle for folks?
It's Rob Vollman, NHL.
So head over there, follow Rob. You'll find his work, NHL.com, his work on his own site. There's a ton of great content over there. Follow him. And then when we post the article, or the episode rather, give us a retweet. You'll be entered for the contest, and tweet us with the hashtag Hockey Abstract. You will be entered. Either of those, you'll be entered into a draw for one copy of Hockey Abstract 2017. And you will not be disappointed. It was a great read. And as always, Rob, thank you very much for being on the show. Thank you for the book. We look forward to what you have in store for us next year.
Well, thanks for having me on. And also, just so the people in the contest understand, you have your choice of print or digital, and you have your choice of English or French, whichever one you prefer of those combinations.
There you go. Hockey Abstract 2017. great read, and always, however you want it, lots of ways to read. So make sure to check it out. Thanks again to Rob, and we will remind you at the end of the show how you can win a copy of the book, but head over to Twitter, do the retweets, do the mentions, do all those things. You can win a copy of the book. I know Joel's not the biggest stats guy, but I'm excited for the way that the stats era in hockey is going. There's more, and as long as people don't, I'm now on my third different site. So shout out to naturalstattrick.com. That is my new go-to stats site.
And I'm excited, or I'm happy that you're excited. That's where my level of excitement goes. This is if Carl's happy about where stats are going, I'm happy.
I like that.
If you're not, then I'm outraged.
I like that you only go more passive than me. You don't stay mediocre.
Yeah. Can I talk about something else that I'm outraged about?
Yeah.
This is...
Let's do... Is this Carl's counseling coach?
It could be. I don't know. It just brings up emotion whenever referees, umpires, whoever that is supposed to take care of making sure the game doesn't get out of hand. Is there I think there's lots of things that umpires and referees do terribly. I think the thing they do the worst at, though, is when tension is running high between two teams and the refs don't shut it down. And I'm talking about this because Carl knows where I'm going now, but I was watching a Yankees-Tigers game the other day. I didn't watch it. I watched most of the highlights. And, man, it was an ugly game. Guys were getting hit with balls, fighting, tons of suspensions and fines came out afterwards.
And arguably a light amount of suspensions and fines. A pitcher, I won't mention for which team, if you saw it, you know, a pitcher hit someone in the head with the ball after all of these fights have happened, didn't even get a fine. You would think that in a normal situation, after multiple people have been hit, punches have been thrown, you hit someone in the head, he gets tossed, sure. A fine? Nope, not even one.
It's just, I don't get, and it happens in the NHL too, where you'll have a game that just starts, the game that obviously one that I was thinking of was the Canucks-Leafs game back in the fall last year. It just got out of hand so quickly, and you're just like, okay, well, how about you just shut this down, refs? How about you just don't let this happen? Show that you're not going to let this kind of stuff happen. Give consequences to players for doing these things, and then it'll shut it down. But nope, we're gonna act like we have no idea what's going on. Let guys try and kill each other, and then afterwards, after it's all said and done, then we'll punish them.
And I think that is the problem, is that for me, I'm fine if a game is getting physical or getting aggressive. What I'm not fine with is when people start putting other players at risk, which in that Tigers-Yankees game certainly happened, and the Canucks-Leafs game that certainly happened. And so, yeah, they do need to. And I think that's the delicate balance that they struggle to get sometimes, is because if nothing happens, some people will come out and say, you stopped it before anything happened. Nothing did happen. And they need to find a way to get it to that point where before anyone gets hurt, they know how to intervene, right? Because it doesn't make any sense to say, okay, I waited until someone got mugged in the corner to do anything. Well, then it's too late.
Yeah. It's just, so, I don't know. That's all. It's probably because refs don't get paid enough to care. Because I know, and you want to scale it all the way down to my recreational slow pitch league. The umps do exactly the same thing. They don't shut down any tension. They don't. And why? And we all know it. It's because they don't get paid enough to care. They don't get paid enough to step in and have people mad at them. And so they're just you'd rather them be mad at each other than mad at us. So
yeah, I was talking to a buddy this week, and his rec league slow pitch, he just about came to fisticuffs over rec league.
Yeah,
gets a little feisty out there sometimes. Some of these games, so
people get aggressive.
Yeah, and they themselves don't shut it down. And if the ref, how much does a slow pitch ref get paid for that game? $50?
Yeah.
So
$50. That's what you get paid a game. Oh, it's totally not worth it. And I get it. I get obviously anyone who plays sports gets emotion, and so you get worked up about stuff. But the problem is there's got to be ways, when you, especially in hockey, when it's clear, there's so many times that it happens. You're okay, that guy clearly just punched the other guy in the face in the middle of a scrum, or that guy clearly elbowed that guy in the head. And you're just hey, well, what are you doing about this? Or running a goalie. She's yeah, maybe you should just penalize that guy instead of pretending you didn't see it.
It might be a good idea. What I thought you were going to say when you started this conversation about how things make you angry, I thought you were going to say that people who eat bagels as donuts makes you angry.
Oh, that does make me angry. I've been watching that show, and it annoys me beyond no end. Okay, have you seen Suits? We've talked about, not on the show, but me and you have talked about the show Suits. So I've just started watching it for the first time, and I'm enjoying it. But the stupid guy eats a bagel like a donut.
So
who eats a bagel like a donut?
Which is a bigger offense to you? A bagel as a donut or a bagel with cream cheese with a fork and knife?
Oh, bagel like a donut, no question. That's bagel is it's not even he's eating it as a bagel, but it's oh, I don't have time. So they cut it in half, put cream cheese on it, and then put it together and then ate it like a donut. He's not even doing that. It's not even cut. It's not even it's a cheese and a jalapeno and cheese bagel. It's just plain, nothing on it, just regular bagel, eating it like a donut. That's you know how dense that is, and just there's no way. There's no way. Why is he eating like a donut? Oh.
I have definitely done it before. I've also done something arguably even worse. What I'll do I don't know why I think this is more time effective, but I'll eat it like a donut, but then I'll put peanut butter or something on it, and every bite I'll just peanut butter the one side.
That's not, yeah, okay.
So the hole that's been made from eating it, I just slather peanut butter on, take a bite. Every bite has the freshest peanut butter.
I don't know, I can get behind that a little bit. You're right in saying, though, if you just cut it and put peanut butter on, you're probably saving yourself time, though. But
Where were you at breakfast this morning? Actually, I made fantastic waffles for breakfast this morning, so I didn't need any help.
I haven't, yeah. But, oh, man, it just bothers me. And the thing is it's always they're in, some middle of a conversation and something's happening, and I don't even know what's going on in the conversation. Because all I'm doing is,
you're just so angry.
How is this guy eating it like a donut? Are you kidding me? Like a donut. How, I don't get it. I don't get it. Have you ever been, where do you ever buy a bagel as a donut? When I go to Tim Hortons and I get a bagel, it always comes cut in the middle. And so I just eat one half and then I eat the other half, and that's just how it comes.
If you go to a bakery, they sell them whole, though.
But, yes, but you're going to a special place to get, this is a breakfast. It's the coffee cart on the side of the street. People in New York, if we have any listeners in New York, do you guys eat bagels as donuts? Is that like regular there? And if so, why? And your argument's probably not good enough.
Well, let Joel know. Before Joel finds more things to be upset about, we will let you know how to find us on the internet at Fourth Line Podcast on Twitter. And if you wish to win a copy of Rob Vollman's Hockey Abstract 2017, retweet the pinned tweet with this episode, as well any entry with the hashtag Hockey Abstract. Tweet at us with hashtag Hockey Abstract. You will be entered, and we will close it Friday at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time, which just means in enough time for us to close it before next week's show.
So September 1st.
Yeah, September 1st.
Also, let us know.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it Wednesday because I don't know when. Next weekend's the long weekend. I have to go out of town, so we'll do it Wednesday.
Okay, September 30th.
August 30th.
And also, let us know if you eat bagels like donuts, because Absolutely. Then we know who to not talk to.
Joel's just gonna. Even if you don't follow Joel, he'll just go block you. He doesn't want you accidentally slipping in his timeline.
Are you kidding me? Do you eat, like, I don't know why you're not so upset about this, how it doesn't bother you. It doesn't bother you?
No.
You're all about the bagel donut?
I'm not all about the bagel donut, but, like, I don't know. I find, like, a good bagel, I would eat it like that. A Tim Hortons bagel, yeah, I'd want to put some stuff on it, but I would eat, like, a good quality, like, fresh bagel whole. Without anything else.
No. I can't do it. I can't even wrap my head around trying this. Like, it's just so dense. It's like, if you want to eat a donut, just eat a donut.
That is quite true. All right, well, tweet at us with your hashtag Hockey Abstract to be entered. Retweets closes Wednesday evening at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. We're also on the fourthlinepodcast.com. We are also on Last Word on Sports. Joel, big news coming for the show next week.
Big news.
We're excited about it. We will have that for you guys next week. And until then,
Boom City. Hashtag bagel donut.